Hello, welcome to Exotic Gardening UK, Yorkshire Kris Weekly, and on this week's episode I'll be sharing some tips and tricks of how to incorporate colour early into the exotic garden, and we'll have a progress report on many of the plants, how they've overwintered and plans I've got for the year ahead. We can often struggle to get colour in the exotic garden early in the year, but it's only middle of April, and I think tulips add so much colour to the garden and they're so easy to grow. There's so many types of tulips. The ones I like to grow are the ones that repeat flower, as in they come back year after year and keep their vigour, and these are the Darwin hybrids. So these can be planted quite deeply in the ground, which I have done throughout the garden, or as I've done in these pots, I've planted these very deep 2 or 3 years ago in these pots, and it means that they can flower every spring, adding that colour to the early garden experience. And it means because they're deep in the pots, I can plant annuals in these pots when the foliage dies down in sort of June, July time. So I can have some annuals growing in here as quite small plants in May and June, and then when all this foliage has died down in sort of the end of June into July, the annual plants will have taken over and will give a wonderful summer display, and I can keep that display going all the way throughout the year. And once that's died off after the first frost in November, then the tulips will take over again for next year's spring display. Now, another way to get colour into the garden early in the season, or to be honest, all year round, is to grow plants with colourful foliage and stems. And I've shared this plant many times before. This is Verinda Papyrus 1046. Amazing blue culms. Some people say they fade pretty quickly. These, as you can see, are from the last couple of years, and there's still this beautiful bright blue, even after all the rain we've had over the last few weeks. We've still got that steely blue covering on the culms here, and this will fade in the second and third years, but for a good year or so you get this pretty much brilliant blue colour, and I think it looks attractive all year round, and especially early in the year when not much else in the garden is in bloom. Look at these amazing leaves emerging. This is Gunra Manakata, and it would actually look even better than this if it wasn't for the late frost. Well, early to late frost, because we've got some browning on the leaves here, but that doesn't matter. These will still unfurl and be enormous leaves, and then further down and further throughout the season you get more and more leaves to replace the first leaves, and you won't even notice the frost damage. If the leaf gets completely blackened by a late frost, then I would cut it completely off. Just having the edges singed like this, I don't think that's a big issue. And within a matter of weeks, this whole area will be submerged in huge leaves. And what I like to do is use the space around the Gunra to have some early interest. So we've just had the daffodils finish. We've got some arum lilies that flower early in the year as well and have the foliage now, and they will die down in a few weeks. And what will be left will be the huge Gunra Manakata leaves. Just behind me, I've just noticed we've got the Vargesia robusta bamboo, and that's shooting lots of new culms all across the garden there along the fence line. So that will provide lots of dense, lush foliage for the season ahead. Now you may be wondering why I've got Aeoniums out in the garden quite early in the season. Well, the reason is Aeoniums have taken a lot of space up in the greenhouse, and I need all that space now for all my seedlings, my cuttings, and potting up those seedlings that need more and more space as I put them in bigger pots. Aeoniums can tolerate light frost, and I've got to start the hardening off process. When you bring it outdoors, it's going to be affected by the weather. It's got to get used to that. It's going to be a lot chillier at night outdoors than indoors in the greenhouse, which is kept above 5 degrees. And what you need to do is don't put them in bright sunshine straight away. So although Aeoniums and a lot of other plants love bright sunshine, they don't want it straight away. Even in April, it can be too strong and it can burn the leaves, the foliage, if you put them directly into the sunshine without first hardening them off. So my Aeoniums I've put in a shadier position. Here I put it underneath this big bamboo and it's by the trampoline so it doesn't get direct sun, and then in a week or so's time I'll move it further out into the garden against the south facing wall where it will get a lot more sun and the foliage will be ready to take that heat and that sunlight. So now is the time to remove the winter rain and snow shelters from my precious agaves in this arid bed. So we've had a cold winter, so a few things aren't looking 100% this spring, but I'm happy to say all the agaves under this shelter are looking pretty good. They've all at least survived. So we've got Montanas, we've got Agave Americana, we've got Lafantha as well. So these shelters now into mid-April can be taken off, and I'll reuse these and store these sheets away for next year. And it'd be nice to get some bright sunshine on these agaves and they can do their thing for the rest of the season. How are your Tetrapanics plants doing this spring? I've got lots around the garden, several that are really mature, including my largest one, which is got a main trunk or stem well over 3 meters tall now, and we can just see at the top there all the leaves are emerging. Had a bit of frost damage a week ago, that's quickly dissipated now with lots of new leaves emerging from the centre. I didn't lose any growth points on any of my plants. I have the big ones like this, which are very exposed right in the middle of the garden, or the tiny plants dotted around the suckers that have popped up in different areas. They've all continued to grow from that main growth point. So they're doing really well. I'd be interested to know how yours are doing. And if you've grown them for the first time, if you've just had them in the ground for a year, the second year or the first spring you've had them overwintered, they will burst into life over the next few weeks, providing that growth point has survived the winter, which they should do in most cases, because generally they're pretty hardy. If you have had your growth point killed off, it will come back from the roots really well, and you might end up with 5, 10, 15, 20 plants or more this season. Here we have some more colourful interest to the spring exotic garden, and these unusual greenish yellow structures appearing from the trunk of a Trachyarthus fortunii palm. If you've not grown these plants for too long in your garden and you see these appearing on your palm trees for the first time this spring, don't be concerned, they're completely natural, and what they are flower pods. So over the next few weeks these will grow and develop and the flowers will open, and you get male and female flowers on different plants. So your palm tree will either be a boy or a girl, and time to see if it is a boy or girl is when the flowers have emerged. In the males you get bright yellow flowers, and if you dust your fingers over them you'll get yellow pollen on your fingers. It's like fine yellow dust. If it's a female it'll be greenish yellow and you won't have that pollen on there. So this here has flowered for about 3 or 4 years. This is a Trachyarthus nova. Add some interest into the spring garden, so don't be concerned if you see these strange structures appear on your trunk of your palm tree. They're basically just flowers. So here we've had quite a few changes. I've dug up all the sleepers around these beds here and all the decking paths that were in these areas. We've got a trench down here where we had decking path, and now I've created a new winding sinuous path that goes down and around the garden. So I've dug this to a depth of about 30 centimeters give or take, and the plan will be to put some hardcore down here, compact that, and then we're going to have some nice gravel in the centre with some nice granite sets that go all the way around to give it an edge and just to get that definition between the nice gravel, so the posher gravel that's going to go inside the path, and the pea shingle that's going to go over the beds on the side, and in some areas like here we're probably going to have a soil bed as well. It's going to be a mix of tropical planting in this area, and as we progress into the middle it'll all be arid planting, so we're maximising the sunlight and the arid planting in the centre, and having more tropical, water demanding plants at the side, I can concentrate my efforts in summer watering these areas, and I won't need to water the middle area at all. So that's a plan. So join me in future episodes as we create these paths around the garden. I am against time, I've got to get all this done, I've got to get planted up, all in the next few weeks. So whilst digging my paths further down the garden and making the new areas, obviously I've moved a lot of plants because I've dug the new pathways through the original flower beds. So whilst I've been digging up the areas, I've come across lots of plants, including this wonderful thing. This is Persicaria red dragon, and I dug it up and I've separated it, and now I've got pot after pot of this plant. Very, very easy to divide with a spade or with a kitchen knife, something like that, and you can make lots and lots of plants. You hardly need any roots, you just need a little bit of stem with a tiny bit of root, and it will quickly form a new plant. So I've got plenty of these beautiful, colourful lead plants. Very, very hardy plants, but they don't like frost, so late frost will wilt and kill off the initial foliage, but they'll come back with vigour, and by midsummer these will be great big mounds of red and silver foliage. So here at my archway in the garden, I've got my wonderful chocolate vines already in flower. I've got two types here. We've got the standard pinkish one, and we've got the creamish white one here as well. Having two plants means you'll get cross-pollination, and it means you get those really strange, weird fruits later on in the season, which are edible, by the way. So these flowers smell absolutely divine. They smell of vanilla, spicy, chocolatey smell, really, really strong perfume, really gorgeous flowers, and it's something of early interest in the garden when everything else really is not at its best. The chocolate vines are doing its thing. And if we look down to the ground, right underneath the archway, we have lots and lots of seedlings. So the fruits last autumn fell to the ground. I didn't manage to eat all of them, and we've got lots and lots of seedlings down there. And the great thing is I can get lots and lots of free plants because I can dig these up like I did in my video where I was potting up my seedlings in the greenhouse. This is basically the nature's way of doing it. Lots of seedlings in the ground, but then I'm going to intervene, pop these into little 7cm pots ready to grow on. So this is just a few of the seedlings that I've potted up from the garden. Already most of them have got the first adult leaves on, and then these will be grown on this summer. They'll be potted on probably at the end of the year or near the end of the year, and then next year they'll be big enough to plant out in the final growing positions. But I've got 20-30 on this table. I'm sure there'll be many to sell at me at garden open days as well. Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening UK. Join me next week where I'll be doing more in the garden.